Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. Today we're going to talk about how through batch painting I base coated my Space Wolves. Alright, welcome back guys. Today we're going to do a little bit of a painting in chat tutorial, and this is how I base coated my Space Wolves. Now, if you're building an army of Space Wolves, you can use this formula to have throughout your entire army. You can have other formulas as well. Now, what I like to do is a bit of pre-shading. So what I do is a base coat, and then I put in all the shadows, and then I put in all the highlights, and I kind of play around between shadows and highlights till I get the effect that I want. I try to hit every armor panel, so this way it has a glowing effect, and then I kind of tone it down with a gray glaze. So there's a lot of different steps that I involved in this base coating tutorial / chat. So again, first is pre-shading. All right, so next up, we're going to use here, and I wrote this down, the base color is Raven Black with Werewolf Gray. Okay, so that's the base color that we're going to do right there, and it's going to darken things up. That black will darken things up. If it's too dark for you, instead of using black, you can use a gray, like a concrete or something like that. But I really wanted the shadows pronounced, and later on I played around to lighten up the colors. Again, do it to your taste. But a sky blue and a darker color, as in a gray or a black, would work perfectly. Okay, so a little bit of a before and after effect, and you gotta see, I kind of like spraying this all over, just as a base tone or a base layer throughout all of my lighter, I wouldn't say washes, but more like glazing with the airbrush, which is just very super thin paint to water and thinner ratio. When it comes to thinning things down in the airbrush, I use some airbrush thinner by Vallejo. I also use distilled water quite a bit. In fact, I have a dropper bottle with distilled water in a little container, which I use frequently to dilute all my paints. Now, the amount of dilution, well, that varies depending on the paint. I was using a 5-to-1 ratio here, where I have 1 paint towards 5 water. So that's pretty translucent. All right, the first highlight is Werewolf Gray. It's that beige. Since it said Werewolf Gray, I had to use it. I just thought I did. And I speed things up just a bit, so you can see the before and after right there. Yep, that's where we're going to get this one too. Yep. So it's just hitting each armor panel, wherever you think that the light is hitting it. Sometimes I hit it in different areas just so I can shine it in the middle, and it's not really natural, but it's the rule of cool, so if it looks cool, then go for it, you know? Again, this is your model, so you have complete control of what you do with it and how you want to paint it. So it is up to you. I gotta tell you, when it comes to batch painting, I can only really batch paint for this base coating. I found that out. I really don't feel comfortable batch painting when it comes to just regularly applying paint to the model, and for several reasons. The first reason is I paint to improve, and if I'm batch painting throughout the entire unit, well, then I'm not really going to improve. If I improve on that first model, I'm going to do the exact same thing throughout the other ones. In fact, if I make a mistake on the first model, then I'm going to replicate that mistake throughout all the models, and I just don't see growth. Okay, just wanted to put a comparison of these two together, right? And here I'm going to go, and what I'm here is just trying to paint in some blends to make them more natural. So I add some gray, again diluted with some glazed medium by Vallejo, and I am just trying to blend the blues where it's a little rough. I'm just trying to fix whatever the airbrush didn't catch. If the airbrush, the pressure was a little bit too high and it started spraying greeny. So that's something you definitely can do. So yeah, I can batch paint uh, when it comes to base coating, but when it comes to painting, again, if you make a mistake on the first one and you're going to replicate it throughout the entire unit, you're going to have that mistake throughout the entire unit. I can't do it. Again, I paint for improvement. So I will paint the first one straight throughout to completion, based and everything, and pinned and everything else. And then I will paint the next one and I'll go through it. So I think that's the way I paint. How do you paint? You can leave a comment down below if you if you like batch painting and you put it all together, and the reasons why. I'd be interested for it. I'm not the be all end all for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't want all my entire unit to have the equal level of mediocre paint job, especially if I improve. I want to improve, and the improvements are slight. Between miniatures, you get a little better, and when you get to the last miniature, it looks much better than the first miniature. But it's not going to look like that dramatically different because you're using the same paint scheme. As long as you're using the same paint scheme, and you kind of like put them all together in a unit as they're traveling together, they kind of blend in because they are soldiers and they have uniforms. And uniform, by its definition, means exactly the same or very, very similar in this case. Okay, so. Yeah, so the variance isn't very stark. It's different though, and it's what motivates me to improve. So yeah, I personally cannot batch paint. I can only batch base coat. So that's why I wanted to keep this separate from actually batch painting all these units. And again, painting these it was an adventure for me. And you can see here the stark contrast between one and the other. Now, I kind of toned this down towards the end. I hit it with a gray, a lighter gray throughout. It's a big old glaze that I put with the airbrush. Now that kind of didn't translate well, only because when I did the glazing, it was too stark in the contrast right there. So I kind of like just toned it down with that gray there. Okay, so here we am. I am just, again, working on that transition, trying to get it natural, for it not to be so stark. See, I didn't kind of like the darkness of it. It went a little too dark. It was a little too extreme in the highlights, so I kind of just toned it down with a little bit of gray in between, kind of just like unify the entire project so it doesn't seem more like shiny blue, but shiny gray blue. And I felt like I lost some of that grayness in there. And you can do this when you're painting. At this point, when it comes to minis, I figure that there are not too many mistakes that you can make except for, ruining details by putting too much paint. But if it's thinned down, you can always put another little coat on there. And that's very, very forgiving when it comes to these acrylics. However, here's a third highlight of Snow White. And then we're going to go straight up the highlights there. And yeah, so it's very, very forgiving. You can actually go back and play with it. It's sort of like oil painting when I watch a Bob Ross video, especially back in the day. So he was like, oh, I just put this blob of green paint and now I'm going to make it into a tree. But you just ruined your perfectly great picture. It's like, no, I didn't ruin it. Watch. They're just happy little mistakes. And I'm like, love that. Love Bob Ross. You the man. Wherever you are. Or where. Poor guy. Awesome, dude. So there you go. I have my minis pretty much there. Just keep on fiddling back and forth. Again, you can do this to taste. And definitely it's causing some hot spots in the minis. You can see that. I think it looked pretty cool. Again, here is some sub-assemblies. I do the same for the arms so I can have a transition there. And you can see, since it's like zenithal kind of highlighted, it's darker on the bottom than it is on top. Okay, here we go to shade. I'm doing a shade with phthalo blue and black with, that's phthalo blue. There's Windsor and Newton. And these are just straight olive paints. I think they're pretty cool, especially for washes. And kind of just darken it up. I'm kind of playing around with washes, which I do hit washes later on just to dirty it up and really accentuate and make the unit pop at the end. But I was just playing around with some washes here. And you can, or, if you want to get the recesses now, you can get them done now. If not, you can skip this step. completely. Just know one thing, that before you use oil washes, I like to use gloss um, coat on there, and then use the oil washes, and then I hit a matte coat on there, and then I just spray the regular water-based acrylics afterwards. Really don't like to mix them. I don't know what happens if you do mix them. I haven't experimented with that, so I don't know. I have a system that kind of works. That's all I know. So again, going back to the acrylics, hitting with that gray and that blue, toning down the stark highlights because they got a little out of control in my taste. At first I kind of liked it, and then I kept on looking at it. And what I do is when I paint the model, I usually have it, actually I have it in my bedroom on my bureau. And then early in the morning when I use the restroom, I'll take it in there with the restroom me, because I do some of my best thinking in the restroom. And I kind of look at it and look at it and look at all the errors and see what I can correct. And I just didn't love the stark contrast, so I decided to put something a little lighter, again, Werewolf Gray, into the Spacewolves Gray, just to lighten up the stark contrast. And it came out pretty cool, in my opinion. Yep. So painting these Spacewolves is kind of an adventure for me. At first, I was completely intimidated. In fact, this this box has been sitting in my shelves of shame, I guess, for about a year, and I have not touched it because every time I looked at it, I'm like, I can't paint Space Marines. No way, you know, it's too tough. I've never done it before, so I don't even know how to do it and what steps to take. So I decided to just go for it. Yeah, just go for it. And I decided to do Spacewolves, I guess. I wasn't going to play the game, and then 40K came out, and I saw the Primaris Marines, and I was pretty much taken aback by how they looked. I mean, they look pretty cool, those intercessors and whatnot. And, yep. So I just went for it. And here it is. This is the leader of the Blood Claws that I did, and as I keep doing these in subsequent videos, I'm going to show you more of them. But yeah, that is the base coat for them, and you see how it turned out. It looked pretty cool in my opinion. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. All right. Well, there you have it. All the Spacewolves that I have right now are base coated and ready for paint. I'm going to have up-and-coming videos where I'm going to start painting all of them up and showing you what I did. So look forward to that in the upcoming months. Alright, well, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on the Miniatures Paintbrush.